So after introducing himself as holy and true, he doesn't stop there. There's one more thing that we need to look at about his self-introduction. And this may take up the rest of our time. Okay, we didn't get very far in Philadelphia. Okay, so what does he say? Okay. Now, does anything pop to your mind of what that might mean? Just when you first read that, anything come to mind of what he's getting at when he says, "And I hold the keys of David"? What's with the keys and why David? Well, let's talk about keys. I think everyone gets mainly what this is about. What do keys represent?
Something that opens something.
Yeah. So it gives you control over something that's locked. It allows access or denies access. And you have control over that access, right?
It talks about holding the keys to Hades and death.
Good, you're ahead of me, and I love it. Look at chapter 1, verse 18. Bill's exactly right. He's talked about holding keys already. I hold the keys of death and Hades. I control access to death and Hades, which I love because that means he can let folks out. He gets to let folks out of death and Hades. Woo! That's pretty sweet, because I know him. I know him and he knows me, and he's got the keys, so I'm out of there. Yeah. So, what does it mean then that he holds the keys of David? What's David have to do with anything? Well, I want to show you a few scriptures that are in the Old Testament that give us some idea maybe. I won't ever claim to know the fullness of anything in here because there's so much going on, but we can at least approach it and start to get a hold on it. Let's see. So let's go to Isaiah 22:22. Isaiah 22:22. Now, I told you ahead of time, we're going to see so much of the Old Testament prophecies in Revelation. We've already seen a lot. And here's one more example. We were just talking, a few of us, on Sunday morning, or I guess it was afternoon after Sunday school things, how if you stick only to the New Testament and you do not become familiar with the Old Testament, you have a real hard time in the New Testament. How do you read most of the New Testament and all of its references to Old Testament things and get it? So this is really important that we get real comfortable flipping back to our Old Testaments and having some idea of what's going on here. Okay, so in Isaiah 22:22, I'm sure we have to read more than that, but that's the specific verse that we're going to hone in on. This is not talking about Jesus, but Jesus takes it on to be related to him in his role as Messiah. So, look at verse 15 with me. You probably have a heading for chapter 22 that says something about a prophecy about Jerusalem. So this is not about a foreign nation. This is about God's people in Judah, and specifically Jerusalem, which is the leadership of Judah. This is what Yahweh of the hosts, this is what the Lord, Yahweh of the hosts, says. Go to say to this steward, to Shebna, that's the guy, the individual, to Shebna, the palace administrator. What are you doing here, and who gave you permission to cut out a grave for yourself here, hewing the grave on the height and chiseling your resting place in the rock? Beware, Yahweh is about to take firm hold of you. Listen to this. Yahweh is about to take firm hold of you and hurl you away, you mighty man. What a picture. You picture it? God's big hand reaching down, grabbing him up, and just whoosh, tossing him far away. Oh boy, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know how he's going to hurl him away other than violently, right? That's quite a thing to say. He will he will roll you up tightly like a ball. Anybody thinking like tinfoil? I was like, right? And the piece of paper in school, and hurl you away, you mighty man. Do you imagine God getting a little sarcastic on that end of that there? You mighty man, you think you're something. You want to see real might? Here you go. And I love it. I don't love it. It's not good. But I mean, the imagery is so rich and crazy here. There you will die, and there the chariots you were so proud of will become a disgrace to your master's house. I will depose you from your office, and you will be ousted from your position. Now here we go. In that day, when I take you out of your position, I will summon my servant, Eliakim son of Hilkiah. I will clothe him with your robe and fasten your sash around him and hand your authority over to him. So keep in mind those images. We've got the robe, the sash, and the authority. He will be a father to those who live in Jerusalem and to the people of Judah. I will place on his shoulder the key to the house of David. Now notice what he says next. Does this sound familiar? What he opens, meaning Eliakim, no one can shut. What he shuts, no one can open. Why? Because he's got David's key. Now, in this text, what is the key of David? It's the key to the house of David, which means the key to the royal throne and authority over Judah.
Bloodline.
What's that?
Bloodline.
Bloodline, good. Now, why is that even in play? Why does being related to David have anything to do with ruling Judah? That's because it goes back to a covenant, a promise covenant God made with David. And he told David that if your descendants abide by my word, you will never fail to have a descendant on the throne of Judah. That is found, we won't take time to look at all that, but if you want to look into this, look at 1 Chronicles 17 and look at 1 Kings 2:4. 1 Chronicles 17, 1 Kings 2:4. Because there you're going to see something that you really shouldn't miss if you want to understand the New Testament. That the reason it's so significant that Jesus is the son of David is that he has to be the son of David or the descendant of David if he's going to be the king. That's the rule. God set it up that way. You cannot be king over Judah legitimately unless you come from David's line. Yeah, absolutely. Isaiah has other prophecies about the out of Jesse will come a branch. Out of the stump of Jesse, which is even more poetic because a stump, that thing's gone, it's dead. But somehow a branch is sticking out of it? What's up with that? And guess what? David's line was cut off. David did not have a son on the throne of Israel for hundreds of years. When Jesus shows up, who rules Israel? Not a Jew. Rome does, right? There's no king over Israel in the Jewish world. So when Jesus arrives, there was a stump. But all of a sudden, there's life, a branch growing out of this dead thing, and a kingdom's growing out of it. What? Oh, it's so beautiful. Okay. Now, if Jesus says he holds the keys of David, I think he's reminding the people, I am the rightful king of Judah, yes. But does it stop there? No, because in the poetic/prophetic writings of David, David said God told him that he would give all the nations to him as an inheritance. Did that happen in David's lifetime? Did David rule all the nations? Not even close. He did expand the kingdom beyond Saul's kingdom, but there's no way he was king over all the nations. So when he's writing that God promised that to him, God's actually promising it to his line, to his kingdom. And so when Jesus comes, we see in Revelation chapter 1, we looked at this last time too, and this is going to come up a lot. He is the ruler, where was I? Chapter 1, verse 5. Jesus is described as the ruler of the kings of the earth. Why? Because God kept his promise to David, and he gave him, or his son, all the nations of the earth as an inheritance. So, just keep in mind, when Jesus says he holds the keys of David, he doesn't just mean to Judah, he means to the nations. Because that's the promise to David. That's cool. So Jesus is holy, Jesus is true, and he's got real authority in a real world. And this is actually very important. Because holy and true, we can keep that in the clouds of heaven, and isn't it nice that up there he's so good? And boy, I can't wait to get there. But what he declares when he says he holds the keys of David is it brings it very firmly and concretely to this world. This isn't an otherworldly truth about Jesus. In this world, with real nations that are corrupt and rebellious against God, Jesus can crash in as the holy and true one and has something to say. And that's why here, in the city of Philadelphia, which is godless, in the city of Philadelphia that's pagan and hard on the Christians, Jesus reminds them, I am a real king in this real world, and I have something to say. So don't just listen to this as religious people. Listen to this as citizens of a kingdom that has come to earth, right? All of this is really important to this letter. Because if these Christians only have hope for the afterlife, a lot of what Jesus says isn't going to make sense. He's about to speak as a true king of earth. I don't mean from earth, but I mean a true king over the earth to these people who are living on the earth. Now, with a few minutes, is it even worth trying? Let me just say, in verse 8 of chapter 3 in Revelation, let's go back there. After Jesus says his customary thing that I know your deeds. By the way, you ever wonder why he kept saying it? Like, haven't they picked up on it so far? They're the sixth letter, for goodness sake. Can't they just imagine Jesus knows their deeds? He has to say it again? Yeah. Because don't you need to hear that from him, just like your brother needs to hear it from him, your sister needs to hear it from him? He has said it to the other churches, but they need to hear it too. I also see your deeds, Philadelphia. Can we here at First Church of Christ hear him saying that? I see your deeds too, First Church of Christ. For good or for ill. And isn't that true? That statement doesn't tell you good or bad. It just says, whatever it is, I'm seeing it. And I'm true. I'm seeing the way it really is, not what you wish I would see. Right? So having said that, does he give them any condemnations over what they're doing? Does he say anything to rebuke them as you kind of scan over it? We've seen most of the letters there's a rebuke. Right. In a couple of letters there's only rebuke. No. This is one of the two letters where he has no rebuke for them. I know your deeds, and I just want to tell you how proud I am of you, if I could loosely summarize. Because what he sees, he likes very much. And not the struggles they're going through he likes. He likes what they're doing about it. He likes the heart they're maintaining in it. We're not going to have time to look at that tonight. But notice what he does say here in verse 8. Because this should sound familiar from what we just read in Isaiah. See, I have placed before you, you Philadelphian disciples, an open door. Oh, get this. Oh, this is so good. There's an open door that no one in your whole city, in the whole Roman Empire, in all the world, in all the spiritual realms, there is no one that can shut that door. I would love to have a really good conversation about what the door is, but I have to be honest with you, I have no idea. What is the door he's talking about? I have set before you an open door. Well, could you explain that, Lord? Nope. Now, they might have known. They might have, in the context of their life living together in Philadelphia, they might have an idea of what he's talking about. We are listening after the fact to what's going on, wondering, hey, Jesus, what were you talking about? But one idea that's been presented, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, is this was a door of spreading the kingdom and the message. And that's why this idea that Philadelphia was a staging ground for the evangelization of the Greek message might have something here. If the open door was for the opportunity for the gospel to go out, what he's saying is no one can stop that. There's no one that can keep you from doing my work, my way, even if there's pushback. There's no way the door's going to close entirely. Now, people might be trying to shove the door closed, trying to keep you from doing it, but what is his promise here, if this is actually what he's talking about? They can't. All the forces of Satan and the whole world can be behind the door trying to shove it closed, and he's like, it's not budging, because I opened it. And as Isaiah 22:22 gave us a glimpse of an earthly picture of the heavenly reality, there's this man Jesus who holds the keys that when he opens the door, who's going to override him? Who's going to outvote him? Or, nobody. He has the highest authority.
Right, I look at that as not talking about a door. I've always looked at that as a way to say, without dispute, that God, or Jesus, is in total control, because no one can open a door he shuts, and no one can shut a door to you. That's ultimate. That's total control. That's I don't know how else you would explain it. It's so simple.
Yeah, the principle is
powerful.
That's correct.
If you look at it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem like, though, there's a particular thing he's talking about. Because he said, I have set before you. So, I mean, he's not sticking to the realm of the principle. But I agree with you, that's the most important part of it. Because we can't know for sure what the specific is. But I'm glad for the Philadelphian disciples. I'm glad for them that they had that. Whatever it was. Now, what do we take away from that as we close our study of this for now?
We have an open door.
Thank you very much.
Amen.
And every reason we can think of to not go through the door can be answered by one simple phrase. No one can shut it. If Jesus set it open before us, and we have to prayerfully discern what it is, what possible reason could we not go through it? Number one, we trust him, don't we? If he set it open before us, he has a really good reason. There's something needs to happen through this door. Why are we staying on this side of it? And the other is, if you walk through it, I don't know what's on the other side. And Jesus would say, I do. Now think about this. Would Jesus send you through that open door if what waited for you on the other side was ultimately going to destroy you? No. It might even kill you physically. It can't destroy you. Because remember, he has the key to open this door, but he also has the key to death and Hades. Do you see how he's got everything covered? This door, I got the keys. This might end in my death, Lord. Right, but I got the keys to that too. We're fine. You're never going to be stuck. Because I always have the way out for you. Oh, I hope this gives you courage. I hope it gives me courage. I'm cowardly so much of the time. I really am. I see an open door and opportunities. I talk myself in circles long enough for the door to shut. I'm like, oh well, I guess it wasn't meant to be. He's like, oh,
It's kind of like, I think about this too, and I keep hearing this, like, you love somebody so much, and you know that they don't know the truth about Christ, but you won't go to them and say it. Like, that's a door that is open for you, and we don't act on it enough. I mean, I'm really completely guilty of it.
Yeah.
When I say we, I'm assuming others are also, but to me that's an open door that we all can improve on.
Yeah. And we convince ourselves it's not open.
Yes.
And I'm gonna wait for a good time when it is open. And then what I find out is there actually never is. There's just always some reason why I shouldn't do it right now, and yeah.
And then they may go to their grave and you never did have that opportunity.
I think like Robbie said a while ago, and it's so true, if you speak at the wrong time, you'll totally blow it, and you won't have another opportunity. You got to be very careful when to choose your time and pray about it.
Yeah.
Pray for that time. Pray for God to I always pray for God to soften someone's heart so they listen, and then to give you an opportunity, and pray for the wisdom to recognize that opportunity. Because if you say something at the wrong time, it's over.
Yeah. By the way, the prayer, and I would invite you to incorporate this into your prayer life. Paul asked the church, and he uses the same language, that's why I'm bringing it up. He asked the church, one of the churches, to pray for him specifically that God would open the door for the gospel, that he could proclaim the mystery of Christ for which he was in chains. There's nothing magical about those words, but what a picture, especially when you know what Jesus says about it. Lord, you know the needs of the people around me, of who I'm going to meet today. Would you open a door that no one can shut for your message to go out through me? Like, that language is so rooted in the Scriptures. Of course He's going to hear you, and of course He's going to do something, right? You can pray with confidence when you have these truths ringing in your ears as you pray. Use His language. And of course He'll understand and respond. Absolutely. All right. Amen.